Hi friends! In today's video, I'm going to show you how I set up for a Forethought Peasant heel, which may also be called an Afterthought heel. This heel is different from an Afterthought heel though, because you plan the placement of the heel while you're knitting the sock, using lifelines and waste yarn. And instead of cutting the finished work later, you remove these waste yarns and knit the heel from the stitches that were essentially held. So for toe-up socks like these, before following the steps in this video, you will need to knit until the sock reaches the front of your ankle or the length specified in the pattern. Here I've done that, and then I knit the stitches for the top of the foot, and I've cut my contrasting color. I'll explain more in a few minutes why I cut that strand. If you're knitting your socks from the cuff down, knit until the cuff reaches your desired length about 2 inches or 5 centimeters above the bottom of your foot. And for either toe-up or cuff-down socks, your heel will be worked over half the number of stitches for your sock. If you're knitting using the magic loop method, slide the stitches onto the cord as I've done here. Grab your tapestry needle and your first bit of waste yarn for the lifeline. And for the lifeline, I like using a fingering weight yarn in a high contrast color. This yarn should also be smooth so it doesn't stick to the working yarn. Go ahead and thread it onto your tapestry needle and simply begin running it through all the stitches on this needle. Take your time and make sure you're staying under the cord and not running your tapestry needle through the plies of any stitches. Alright, so that's step 1. Take a look and make sure the lifeline is running evenly through the stitches and below the cord, not twisting up and over anywhere like it was here. You should also leave a short tail at either side. Slide the stitches back onto the needle and then knit across those same stitches using a waste yarn that is the same weight as your working yarn and a different color than your lifelines. But like the lifelines, the waste yarn should also be smooth so it can be easily removed and doesn't stick. You could also knit these stitches onto a same size double pointed needle, and you'll see why in just a minute. Now you're going to slip those stitches back to the left needle. If you knitted them with a double pointed needle, you can skip this step. Just get yourself set up to knit these same stitches from right to left again. You can use the links in the description box to skip ahead. Okay, make sure the waste yarn and lifelines are in front of the work and not inside the sock. Now we're going to knit across those stitches again with the main color. If you used a double pointed needle for the previous step, resume using your right circular needle tip for this step. I also want to stress that you definitely won't want to do this step by knitting across the waste yarn in color work. It does not look very good when you go to knit the heel stitches later. Ask me how I know. This is also why I cut my contrasting color earlier. I will rejoin it when I continue working in the round. Knitting across this part of the round in the main color only will of course result in a solid colored row in the middle of the colorwork chart. I will fill in the missing contrasting color stitches using duplicate stitch later, and you'll find a video for that on my channel too. When you're done knitting these stitches, slide them onto the cord once again. And we're going to insert a second lifeline into the stitches we just worked. Remember to be careful not to run the tapestry needle through the plies of any stitches. And that's it for the setup. Start working in the round again to finish the sock. Now that I've completed my sock, I'm going to show you how I get these stitches back on my needles to work the heel. I like to do this beginning with the toe side away from me and once again with a 32-inch or 80-centimeter circular needle. You'll start by picking up the stitches below the waist yarn first. I'll just tidy this up so we can see better. I'm going to run my needle along the path of the bottom lifeline here by inserting my needle tip under the right leg of each stitch that is on the lifeline. Your needle is essentially taking the place of the lifeline. Make sure that you don't skip any stitches. Use your lifeline to pull the stitches up if you need to. Now, before you move on, count the stitches to make sure you got them all. Pull the needle tip to the left and turn your sock counterclockwise. And then we're going to repeat what we just did for the rest of the stitches. Again, make sure that you're grabbing all of the stitches on the lifeline. Make sure to count these stitches too. And pull the needle tip to the left once again. And now we're going to remove the waste yarn. You can use the tip of your tapestry needle to do this. Unpick one leg at a time. If the waste yarn gets a little long, you can also cut it to make unraveling these stitches a bit easier. All right. Our sock is now opened back up. Let me get my ends out of the way here. And we have live stitches on both sides of the circular needle. You can see our lifelines look as if we just placed them. From here, you can begin working the heel in the round as instructed in your pattern. I recommend working the first round before removing the lifelines to make sure everything looks good. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope it's been helpful and that I'll see you again here soon. And of course, feel free to ask any questions. Happy sock knitting!